The sterile silence of the underground base was shattered by the sudden hum of energy echoing off the cold, concrete walls. Scientists and military personnel stood back, their eyes widening in awe and apprehension. In the center of the room, a portal materialized, its edges shimmering with ethereal light. Two figures stepped through, their silhouettes casting long shadows against the harsh lights. Zara and Lila, exiled sisters from the distant planet Xylor, had arrived on Earth as punishment. Their skin was a mottled combination of deep blues and greens, with intricate bioluminescent patterns running down their elongated limbs. Their large, expressive eyes reflected the trepidation they felt in this unfamiliar place. Both sisters had defied their planet's rigid caste system by falling in love with a human they had met during a diplomatic mission, and now they were to spend a year on Earth, cut off from their advanced technology and familiar surroundings. "Welcome to Earth," a stern-faced general addressed them, his voice tinged with a mix of suspicion and authority. "You are here under an interplanetary agreement. Any attempt to escape will have severe consequences." Zara exchanged a glance with Lila, her eyes a mixture of fear and resolve. "We understand," she replied, her voice melodic, resonating in the otherwise tense atmosphere. "We will comply with your rules." As they were escorted to their quarters, the weight of their punishment settled heavily on their shoulders. The corridors they walked through were stark and unwelcoming, a stark contrast to the vibrant organic structures of their home planet. Despite the cold reception, Zara and Lila resolved to make the best of their situation, hoping that their love would somehow endure this trial. Weeks passed, and the sisters slowly adapted to the regimented life on Earth. The scientists and military personnel watched them closely, noting their every move. Zara and Lila found solace in each other's presence, and in the small acts of kindness from a few curious scientists who saw them as more than just subjects of study. One evening, during a routine medical checkup, Zara noticed a young man observing them from a distance. His face bore the marks of past injuries, a testament to the hardships he had endured. Intrigued, Zara approached him cautiously. "Hello," she greeted, her voice soft yet carrying an air of confidence. "I'm Zara. What's your name?" The man looked up, his surprise evident. "I'm David," he replied hesitantly. "I work here in a way. I'm more of a test subject than a scientist." Zara tilted her head, her curiosity piqued. "A test subject?" David sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I was injured in an accident. They use me to test experimental treatments." Lila joined them, her gaze filled with empathy. "That sounds difficult. You must be very strong to endure it." David shrugged, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "You get used to it. What about you two? Why are you here?" Zara and Lila exchanged a look before Zara spoke. "We disobeyed our leaders. Our punishment is to live here away from everything we know." David nodded, understanding their plight. "I know what it's like to be different, to be punished for things beyond your control." As the days turned into weeks, Zara, Lila, and David formed an unlikely bond. They shared stories, laughter, and moments of vulnerability, finding comfort in their shared experiences. The sisters, despite their initial apprehension, found a semblance of home in David's friendship. Their connection deepened with each passing day, and soon the desire for freedom began to stir within them. Zara and Lila knew their time on Earth was limited, and they longed to find a way to reunite with the human they loved back on Xylor. David, too, wanted to escape the confines of the underground base and live a life free from the constant surveillance and experimentation. One night, huddled in a corner of their quarters, they began to devise a plan. Using their limited access to technology, Zara and Lila managed to hack into the base's security system. They discovered a weak point in the surveillance, a narrow window of time when the guards changed shifts. "It's risky," Lila said, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and excitement. "But it's our only chance." David nodded, determination hardening his features. "I'm in. I've got nothing to lose." The night of the escape was fraught with tension. Heartbeats quickened, breaths held as Zara disabled the cameras and Lila manipulated the door locks. David kept watch, his eyes scanning for any signs of movement. "Now!" Zara whispered urgently. They slipped through the corridors, moving quickly and silently. As they reached the exit, a blaring alarm shattered the silence, and guards swarmed the area. Zara and Lila used their alien agility to evade capture, guiding David through the chaos. Bursting into the open air, they ran into the forest surrounding the base, not stopping until they were deep within the trees. Panting and exhilarated, they knew they had only bought themselves a little time before the hunt resumed. Hidden in a remote cabin they stumbled upon, Zara, Lila, and David planned their next move. They needed to find a way to contact Xylor and plead for clemency. Zara's thoughts often drifted to their beloved back home, fueling her determination. "We need to find a way to communicate with our planet," Zara said, pacing the small room. "There has to be a way." David's eyes lit up with a glimmer of hope. "I might know someone who can help. There's an old friend of mine, a scientist who specializes in extraterrestrial communication." With no other options, they decided to seek out David's friend. The journey was fraught with danger as they evaded patrols and navigated unfamiliar terrain. Finally, they reached a secluded laboratory where an elderly scientist greeted them with a mix of shock and curiosity. "David, what have you gotten yourself into this time?" the scientist, Dr. Harris, asked, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "Dr. Harris, we need your help," David explained. "These are my friends, Zara and Lila. They need to contact their home planet." Dr. Harris listened intently as Zara and Lila recounted their story. With a nod, he led them to an advanced communication device hidden in the lab. "This should do the trick, but be quick. Once they detect the signal, they'll be on us in no time." Zara and Lila worked together, their fingers flying over the controls. They sent a distress signal, hoping that someone on Xylor would hear their plea. Moments later, a holographic figure appeared before them. It was their beloved, the human they had risked everything for. "Zara, Lila, is it really you?" he asked, his voice filled with emotion. "Yes, it's us," Lila replied, tears streaming down her face. "We need your help. We've escaped, but we're still in danger." Their beloved nodded. "I'll do everything I can. Stay safe. I'll find a way to bring you back." The days that followed were a blur of tension and hope. Dr. Harris's lab became their sanctuary as they awaited rescue. Finally, one night, a familiar hum filled the air. A portal opened, and figures stepped through, clad in the uniforms of Xylor's elite guards. Their beloved stood at the forefront, a look of determination on his face. "Let's get you home," he said, reaching out a hand to Zara and Lila. David watched, a bittersweet smile on his face. "Go. This is your chance." Zara and Lila hesitated. "Come with us," Zara pleaded. "You don't belong here." David shook his head. "This is my home, but thank you for everything." With a final embrace, Zara and Lila stepped through the portal, their hearts aching with both joy and sorrow. As they emerged on Xylor, they were greeted with a hero's welcome. Their defiance had sparked a movement, leading to changes in the caste system and greater acceptance of interplanetary relationships. But their greatest joy was the reunion with their beloved. Together, they faced the challenges ahead, their love stronger than ever. Back on Earth, David found a new purpose, inspired by the bravery of his alien friends. He continued his work with Dr. Harris, determined to make a difference in the world, and so 2 alien girls exiled to Earth as punishment found love and changed the fate of their worlds forever. Zara and Lila had settled into the rhythm of their daily routines in the underground base. Though the environment was cold and clinical, they found ways to make their confined quarters feel a bit more like home. Small tokens from their past life, a glowing crystal, a holographic image of their family, were hidden among the sparse furnishings, reminding them of the world they longed to return to. One evening, as Zara returned from a mandatory medical examination, she noticed a young man sitting alone in the corner of the common area. His face bore the marks of past injuries, but his eyes were sharp and alive with curiosity. Drawn by an inexplicable urge, she approached him. "Hi," Zara began, her voice gentle. "I've seen you around. I'm Zara." The man looked up, startled out of his reverie. "Oh, hi, I'm David," he replied, his voice tinged with weariness. Lila, who had just entered the room, joined her sister. "Hello, David, it's nice to meet you," she said warmly. David smiled faintly. You too. So, what brings you to this fine establishment? He asked, gesturing vaguely to the sterile surroundings. Zara exchanged a glance with Lila, who nodded slightly. It's a long story, Zara said, sitting down across from David. But we're here as part of a punishment from our home planet. David's eyebrows raised in surprise. Punishment? What could you possibly have done to deserve that? Lila sighed, her eyes clouding with a mixture of sadness and defiance. We fell in love with someone we weren't supposed to. Our society has strict rules about such things. David leaned back, his expression contemplative. Sounds harsh, but I guess every place has its rules. Even here, I'm not exactly free to come and go as I please. Zara's curiosity was piqued. Why are you here, David? He shrugged, a hint of bitterness in his voice. I was injured in an accident. Now they use me to test experimental treatments. I guess you could say I'm a guinea pig. Lila's eyes softened with empathy. That must be hard, but you seem to be handling it well. David chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. You get used to it, or at least you try to. Over the next few weeks, their conversations became a regular occurrence. David would share stories of his life before the accident, his dreams, and his fears. In return, Zara and Lila spoke of Xylor, describing its vibrant landscapes and the strict societal norms that had brought them to Earth. The bond between the three of them grew, each finding solace in the other's company. One night, as they gathered in a secluded corner of the base, David brought up a topic that had been on his mind. Have you two thought about what you'll do when your time here is up? He asked, his voice low. Zara looked thoughtful. We hope to return to Xylor and see if things have changed enough for us to be together with the one we love. Lila nodded. But it's not just about us anymore. We want to make a difference for others like us, who are trapped by outdated rules. David's eyes gleamed with a new light. What if I told you there might be a way to communicate with your planet? I know a scientist who's been working on advanced communication technology. He might be able to help. The sisters exchanged hopeful glances. Do you think he would be willing to assist us? Zara asked. David smiled. I can't promise anything, but it's worth a shot. I'll reach out to him and see what we can do. As the days passed, David made contact with his old friend, Dr. Harris, arranging a secret meeting. The anticipation was palpable as the trio prepared for their covert operation. They knew the risks were high, but the potential rewards were worth it. On the night of the meeting, they slipped out of their quarters under the cover of darkness. David led them through a series of winding corridors and hidden passages, finally emerging into the cool night air. The journey to Dr. Harris's remote laboratory was fraught with tension, but they pressed on, driven by their shared determination. When they arrived, Dr. Harris greeted them warmly, his eyes twinkling with curiosity and a hint of mischief. David, it's good to see you. And these must be your friends from Xylor, he said, nodding to Zara and Lila. Yes, this is Zara and Lila, David introduced. We were hoping you might be able to help them contact their home planet. Dr. Harris stroked his chin thoughtfully. It's a tall order, but I've been working on something that might just do the trick. Follow me. He led them to a room filled with an array of advanced equipment. In the center was a device unlike anything Zara and Lila had seen before, its surface covered in blinking lights and intricate circuitry. This is a prototype communication device, Dr. Harris explained. It's designed to send signals across vast distances. With some adjustments, we should be able to reach Xylor. As Dr. Harris and David worked on fine-tuning the device, Zara and Lila watched with bated breath. Finally, after what felt like hours, the machine hummed to life, its lights glowing brighter. All right, Dr. Harris said, stepping back. It's ready. Zara, Lila, the rest is up to you. Zara approached the device, her hands trembling slightly. She entered the coordinates for Xylor, her heart pounding. Moments later, a holographic screen flickered to life, and a familiar face appeared. Zara, Lila, is that really you? Their beloved's voice was filled with emotion, his image slightly distorted but recognizable. Yes, it's us, Lila replied, tears of relief streaming down her face. We need your help. We've managed to escape, but we're still in danger. Their beloved nodded, his expression determined. Stay safe. I'll do everything I can to bring you back home. As the connection faded, Zara and Lila felt a renewed sense of hope. They thanked Dr. Harris for his help, knowing that their journey was far from over but feeling more united and determined than ever. Back at the base, they resumed their daily routines, but now with a secret plan in motion and the knowledge that their beloved was working tirelessly to rescue them. The bond they shared with David deepened, and together they faced each new challenge with unwavering resolve. Their story was far from finished, but for the first time in a long while, they felt a glimmer of hope for the future. The night air outside the base was cold, a stark contrast to the oppressive heat inside. Zara, Lila, and David crouched behind a cluster of bushes, their breaths visible in the moonlight. The escape plan was simple, but the execution would be anything but. They had managed to gather intel on the guard shifts and had identified a narrow window of opportunity when security was at its weakest. "Are you sure about this?" David asked, his voice barely a whisper. Zara nodded, her eyes scanning the perimeter. "We have no choice. If we stay, we risk being discovered and separated." Lila checked the small device she had swiped from the lab, its screen displaying a countdown. 5 minutes until the next shift change. We need to move fast." With a final nod, the trio sprang into action. They darted across the open ground, their movements fluid and silent. The entrance to the tunnel was just ahead, a small, inconspicuous door that led to a series of maintenance corridors. Zara held her breath as she swiped the stolen access card through the reader, exhaling in relief when the door clicked open. They slipped inside, the dim lighting casting eerie shadows on the walls. The sound of their footsteps echoed softly as they navigated the narrow passageways. Zara led the way, her knowledge of the base's layout guiding them through the maze-like corridors. As they approached a junction, Lila held up a hand, signaling them to stop. She peered around the corner, her eyes narrowing at the sight of 2 guards stationed near the exit. "2 guards, heavily armed," she whispered, retreating to the safety of the shadows. David furrowed his brow. "We need a distraction. Something to draw them away from the exit." Zara glanced around, her mind racing. Her gaze landed on a maintenance panel, and an idea began to form. "Give me a minute," she said, moving to the panel and prying it open. Inside, she found a series of wires and circuits. Using her knowledge of Xylorian technology, she quickly reconfigured the system, setting a timer for a controlled explosion. She turned to David and Lila, her eyes determined. "When this goes off, it will trigger the fire alarm and force the guards to investigate. Be ready to move." They nodded, bracing themselves for the imminent chaos. Moments later, a muffled explosion reverberated through the tunnels, followed by the blaring of the fire alarm. The guards sprang into action, rushing towards the source of the disturbance. "Now!" Zara urged, leading the way to the exit. They sprinted through the now unguarded corridor, reaching the exit door and pushing it open. Cool night air greeted them as they emerged into the forest, the sounds of the base fading behind them. They continued running, putting as much distance between themselves and the base as possible. After what felt like hours, they finally stopped, panting and exhausted. Zara leaned against a tree, her chest heaving. "We did it!" she said, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. David nodded, a mixture of relief and exhilaration in his eyes. "We're not out of the woods yet, but this is a good start." Lila wiped the sweat from her brow, her expression resolute. "We need to keep moving. They'll be looking for us soon." They pressed on, navigating the dense forest under the cover of darkness. The sounds of nocturnal creatures surrounded them, adding to the tension of their escape. Zara's mind raced as she thought about their next steps. They needed a safe place to regroup and plan their next move. As dawn approached, they stumbled upon an abandoned cabin, its weathered exterior blending seamlessly with the forest. David approached cautiously, peering through the windows. "It looks empty," he said, pushing the door open. Inside, the cabin was sparse but functional. A table and a few chairs were the only furniture, and the air was thick with the smell of damp wood. Zara and Lila collapsed onto the chairs, their bodies aching from the exertion. David rummaged through the cabinets, finding a few cans of food and a dusty kettle. "It's not much, but it will do," he said, setting the kettle on the stove and lighting a fire. As they ate, Zara's thoughts turned to their next steps. "We need to contact Dr. Harris," she said between bites. He might have information on how to reach Xylor safely. Lila nodded in agreement. And we need to find a way to cover our tracks. They'll be searching for us, and it won't be long before they find this place. David leaned back, his face thoughtful. I have a few contacts who might be able to help. We can split up and cover more ground. It's risky, but it might be our best shot. Zara looked at Lila, her eyes filled with determination. We can do this. We've come this far and we can't give up now. The next few days were a blur of planning and preparation. They scouted the area, setting traps and diversions to throw off any pursuers. David made contact with his network, securing safe houses and gathering intel on the best routes to avoid detection. One evening, as they huddled around a small fire, Zara felt a surge of hope. They had a plan, and for the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of optimism. We'll get through this, she said, her voice steady. Together. Lila and David nodded, their spirits lifted by Zara's unwavering resolve. They knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger, but they also knew that as long as they had each other, they could overcome any obstacle. With renewed determination, they prepared to embark on the next leg of their journey, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the forest floor as Zara, Lila, and David made their way towards the edge of the woods. They had spent the past several days meticulously covering their tracks, and the constant tension was beginning to wear on them. They needed to move quickly and carefully to avoid the ever-present threat of recapture. As they approached a clearing, David halted abruptly, his hand raised to signal silence. Zara and Lila tensed, their eyes scanning the area for any signs of danger. David motioned for them to follow, and they crept through the underbrush towards the edge of the clearing. Through the trees, they could see a small village, its modest buildings bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. David turned to Zara and Lila, his voice low. This is one of the safe houses my contact told me about. We should be able to find shelter and maybe even some supplies. Zara nodded, her eyes never leaving the village. Let's move, but stay alert. They approached the village cautiously, sticking to the shadows and avoiding the main paths. As they neared the edge of the village, a figure emerged from one of the houses. It was an elderly woman, her eyes sharp and wary. Who goes there? She called out, her voice strong despite her age. David stepped forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. We're friends. We were told you might be able to help us. The woman studied them for a moment before nodding slowly. Come inside, quickly. Once inside the woman's modest home, they were introduced to her grandson, a young man named Liam who had been helping his grandmother manage the safe house. They sat around a small table, sharing a simple meal as they discussed their situation. We need to contact someone who can help us get back to Xylor, Zara explained, her eyes pleading. Do you know anyone who can assist us? Liam nodded thoughtfully. I might know someone. There's a man in the next town over who deals in advanced technology. If anyone can help you, it's him. David leaned forward, his expression serious. How far is the next town? And what are the chances of running into patrols along the way? It's about a day's journey on foot, Liam replied. As for patrols, they tend to avoid the area, but there's always a risk. Zara and Lila exchanged a glance, their determination clear. We have to try, Lila said firmly. It's our best chance. The following morning, they set out at dawn, their footsteps silent on the forest floor. Liam led the way, his knowledge of the terrain invaluable as they navigated the dense woods. The journey was arduous, but they pressed on, driven by the hope of finally finding a way back to Xylor. As they approached the outskirts of the next town, Liam gestured for them to stop. We need to be careful, this place is more heavily monitored. They moved cautiously through the town, sticking to back alleys and side streets. Liam led them to a nondescript building, its exterior giving no hint of the advanced technology within. He knocked on the door in a specific pattern, and moments later it swung open to reveal a tall man with sharp eyes. Liam, the man greeted, his gaze shifting to Zara, Lila, and David. Who are your friends? They need your help, Victor, Liam explained. They're trying to get back to Xylor. Victor raised an eyebrow. Xylor, huh? That's a tall order, but if anyone can do it, it's me. He led them inside, where they were greeted by the sight of various pieces of advanced technology, some familiar and others completely alien. Victor began to explain his plan, detailing the modifications needed to send a secure signal to Xylor. "It's not going to be easy," Victor warned. "But if we can get this equipment to the top of the mountain just outside town, we'll have a clear line of sight for the signal." They spent the next few hours preparing for the climb, gathering supplies and making necessary adjustments to the equipment. As night fell, they set out once more, their path illuminated by the pale light of the moon. The climb was steep and treacherous, the rocky terrain testing their endurance. Despite the challenges, they pressed on, their determination unwavering. Zara and Lila supported each other, their bond strengthening with each step. As they neared the summit, Victor paused, his eyes scanning the horizon. "This is it. We need to set up the equipment here." They worked quickly, setting up the transmitter and calibrating the signal. Zara's heart pounded in her chest as she initiated the transmission, sending their plea for help across the vast expanse of space. Minutes felt like hours as they waited, the tension palpable. Suddenly, the transmitter beeped, indicating an incoming signal. A holographic image flickered to life, revealing the face of their beloved. "Zara, Lila, is that you?" His voice echoed, filled with emotion. "Yes, it's us," Zara replied, tears of relief streaming down her face. "We need your help. We're so close." Their beloved nodded, his expression determined. "Stay where you are. I'm sending a rescue team. Hang on just a little longer." The connection faded, and Zara turned to the others, her heart swelling with hope. "They're coming. We just need to hold out until they arrive." Victor nodded, a smile tugging at his lips. "You've got it. We'll make sure you're safe until they get here." As the night wore on, they kept watch, their eyes scanning the skies for any signs of the rescue team. The first light of dawn began to break, casting a warm glow over the mountaintop. Suddenly, a portal opened in the air, and figures clad in the uniforms of Xylor's elite guards stepped through. Their beloved was at the forefront, his eyes filled with relief and love as he rushed towards Zara and Lila. "We're here," he said, embracing them tightly. "You're safe now." Zara and Lila clung to him, their tears of joy mingling with the fresh morning dew. They turned to David, who watched with a bittersweet smile. "Come with us," Zara pleaded, her eyes shining with gratitude. "You don't have to stay here." David shook his head, his smile gentle. "This is my home, but thank you. You've given me hope." With a final embrace, Zara and Lila stepped through the portal, their hearts filled with love and determination. As they emerged back on Xylor, they were greeted with cheers and applause, their defiance having sparked a movement for change. Back on Earth, David watched as the portal closed, a sense of peace settling over him. He knew that, thanks to his friends from another world, he had found a new purpose. And as he turned to face the challenges ahead, he felt a renewed sense of hope for the future. Zara and Lila stood in the center of the grand hall on Xylor, the intricate architecture around them glowing with soft, bioluminescent light. The hall was filled with people from various castes, their faces showing a mix of awe, curiosity, and hope. Word of Zara and Lila's return had spread quickly, and their defiance had ignited a spark of change across their planet. Their beloved Alaric stood beside them, his presence a comforting anchor amidst the sea of faces. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice low and reassuring. Zara took a deep breath, her hand squeezing Lila's for support. "We are," she replied, her voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in her stomach. As the crowd quieted, Zara stepped forward, her gaze sweeping across the room. "We have returned with a message of hope and change," she began, her voice carrying the weight of their journey. "Our time on Earth has taught us the value of unity and love beyond the confines of caste and tradition." Lila joined her, her eyes shining with determination. "We stand here today to call for an end to the outdated laws that have divided us for too long. Love should not be dictated by status or rank. We must embrace the diversity that makes our society strong." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, and Zara could see the impact of their words in the hopeful expressions around them. Alaric stepped forward, his voice adding to their plea. "Together, We can build a future where love and equality are not just ideals, but realities. It is time for us to change." The hall erupted in applause, the sound echoing off the walls. Zara and Lila exchanged a relieved smile, feeling the weight of their mission beginning to lift. The first steps towards change had been taken, and they knew the journey ahead would be long, but they were no longer alone. In the days that followed, Zara and Lila worked tirelessly with Alaric and other reformists to draft new laws that would dismantle the rigid caste system. They held meetings, rallied support, and shared their experiences to inspire others. The resistance they faced was significant, but their determination never wavered. One evening, as they gathered around a table laden with documents and data pads, Alaric looked up, his eyes thoughtful. "We need to reach out to the other planets in our alliance. If we can gain their support, it will strengthen our position." Lila nodded, her fingers tapping a rhythmic pattern on the table. "I've been thinking the same. Earth, for instance, has its own struggles, but they also have a strong sense of unity despite their differences." Zara's eyes brightened with an idea. "What if we invited representatives from Earth to witness our progress? It would show that we are serious about change and might inspire them as well." Alaric smiled, his admiration for Zara and Lila growing every day. "It's a brilliant idea. I'll reach out to our contacts and arrange it." The following weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Invitations were sent, and soon, delegates from Earth and other allied planets began to arrive. The atmosphere on Xylor buzzed with anticipation and a sense of history in the making. On the day of the summit, the Grand Hall was filled once more, this time with representatives from across the galaxy. Zara and Lila stood at the forefront, their hearts pounding with both nerves and excitement. Alaric stood beside them, his presence a reassuring constant. As the summit began, Zara addressed the assembly, her voice strong and clear. "We stand on the brink of a new era, not just for Xylor, but for all our allied planets. Today we come together to forge a future where unity and love transcend all boundaries." Lila followed, her words resonating with the assembled delegates. "Our experiences on Earth have shown us that while challenges remain, the power of love and unity can overcome them. We invite you all to join us in this journey towards a more just and equal society." The delegates listened intently, their expressions thoughtful and inspired. Representatives from Earth shared their own experiences, highlighting the importance of collaboration and mutual respect. The discussions were passionate and productive, each step bringing them closer to a collective vision for the future. As the summit drew to a close, Zara and Lila felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The seeds of change had been planted, and while the road ahead would be challenging, they knew they were not alone. The support from their allies and the strength of their convictions would guide them forward. That evening, as they stood on a balcony overlooking the city, Alaric joined them, his arms wrapping around their shoulders. "We did it!" he said, his voice filled with pride. Zara leaned into his embrace, her heart full. "This is just the beginning, but it's a start. We can make a difference." Lila nodded, her gaze fixed on the stars above. "Together, we can change the world." Their journey had been long and fraught with challenges, but in that moment, surrounded by the love and support of those they held dear, Zara and Lila knew that they were on the right path. They had found love and unity in the most unlikely of places, and with their hearts and minds united, they were ready to face whatever the future held.